Hi, welcome back to a very special extended episode of Most Craved. I'm Silas Lesnick with ComingSoon.net.
I'm Jenna Busch with Legion of Leia.
And I'm William Bibbiani with CraveOnline. Hey, hey, hey.
We're going to go in-depth talking about a lot of speculation about future films. Just a word of warning, this will contain some comic book spoilers. We're not going to get anything too heavy, and honestly, we don't know a ton about what's actually going to be on the screen. But if you're the type of person that didn't want to know who the Winter Soldier was before Captain America 2, you should stop watching now.
Yeah, but this is stuff that is old news to fans of the comics, and Marvel and DC clearly don't care that we know this.
Real quick, this 2015 slate is something we've known about for a while. It's Avengers, Age of Ultron. Fox is putting out Fantastic Four, and then Marvel's going to come out with Ant-Man. It's going to be 3 comic book movies, and it's going to be the fewest comic book movies we're going to see on the big screen, maybe for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
In a year.
That's right. And then and 2016 is going to be a really, really big one. We're going to get Deadpool from Fox. We're going to get Batman v Superman from Warner Brothers, Captain America 3, X-Men Apocalypse, Doctor Strange, The Suicide Squad, and The Sinister Six. Oh, God, that's going to be a big year.
But the big news this week is the Captain America. The fact that Robert Downey Jr., we heard last week that he went on the Ellen show and sort of implied he was doing Iron Man 4. Turns out it was because...
he didn't imply anything. He lied. He joked. They pushed him to get him to say something, and then he agreed to say something sarcastically, and we all took it too seriously.
But then there was a movie that was announced a week later, which
That
is
was,
this.
but it wasn't Iron Man 4. It wasn't Iron Man 4.
Well, it sort of is. It depends on your point of view. Anyway, the important thing is that Robert Downey Jr. is effectively going to be the antagonist, it seems.
Yes.
Well, it depends on your point of view. That's the whole point of Civil War.
Well, if it's a Captain America movie, Iron Man is going to be the antagonist.
Yeah, and they've sort of been setting up his PTSD. They've been setting up his dealings with the government, whether or not he wants some regulation about things. So maybe we should explain Civil War.
Civil War. Let's see.
There
was an incident in Stamford, Connecticut, where the New Warriors, a superhero team, they had a reality show at the time, accidentally destroyed a bus full of children. This caused shockwaves through the Marvel Universe. What ended up happening is the idea for superhero registration was touted.
Right.
Tony Stark was in full support of it. At the time, Spider-Man was Tony Stark's assistant and was working with him. Tony Stark convinced him, you should go on the air and come out as Peter Parker, because if you do that, it's going to be a huge coup for this registration. Spider-Man did that. He revealed his identity to the public. What ended up happening, though, was this superhero registration wasn't as great as it seemed. It wasn't working. One thing they were doing was they were going to supervillains, and they were giving them, we'll forgive all your crimes if you sort of join the equivalent of the Avengers.
Marvel
That's
did the
a great
Suicide
idea.
Squad.
Yeah.
Marvel did the Suicide Squad.
Captain America was Steve Rogers was super against everything.
And everyone expected that he wouldn't be.
Yeah. The battle comes out. There was a whole crossover. It's really cool. I like it. You hate it.
I love it.
I didn't care for it. This was a story that depended on characters acting out of character. The idea was the New Warriors was this new and untrained team of superheroes, even though they had like a 100-issue series and had saved the universe a couple of times. It was a fundamentally flawed concept.
Reality TV messes with people's brains.
I'll grant you that. But here's the thing. That's not going to be an issue in the movies. That doesn't matter. It's probably going to be an inciting incident that has something to do with Age of Ultron.
Absolutely. We know that Tony Stark created Ultron. It looks like he comes close to destroying the world. I can totally imagine the Tony Stark registration spinning out of events like that.
Yeah, he wants to take responsibility for it. There's been a lot of talk in the Avengers about you need to take responsibility for yourself and not be so selfish. Maybe he goes too far in that direction. That is interesting. But like the problem in the comics was superhero registration, even though there was some corrupt angles to it, in practice it made no sense whatsoever because S.H.I.E.L.D. already knew who all these superheroes were.
Well, not in every case.
Almost every case. They
but
really,
S.H.I.E.L.D.
really
doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, exactly
S.H.I.E.L.D. was completely corrupted and absolute power.
Exactly.
You know what that does.
So in the movies, this is going to be a very, very different entity, which is also why I'm worried about, this might be very, very cool. I have a lot of faith in Marvel. They've earned my respect for the way that they adapt these superhero stories. I've loved almost all of them, and even the bad ones aren't that bad. So, but this is a different kind of setup, this is a different kind of situation. In the Marvel Universe, Civil War was about the protecting the civil liberties of thousands and thousands of characters. In the movies, even if you count the villains, we only have a couple of dozen people in this universe who have superpowers. So what this really is like a club fighting between themselves. Now, they're so powerful that this could have a major impact on the world.
I think
I'll grant you.
Yeah.
safe to say to just treat it like a draft.
Yeah, and I also think it's, this is just speculation, of course, I know nothing, but it's also possible that this will be the situation in which we get rid of this current team of Avengers and bring in new ones.
I
don't know.
Two teams of Avengers,
suspect
one
that
pro
by the
and
end
one
of
con.
Age of Ultron, there won't be Avengers as we know.
Right.
Right, which fits in with the comics. The Avengers team roster changed like practically every issue sometimes.
And in fact, the Russos actually very recently made a comment about why Captain America is great to team up with people. And they said that one of the reasons is because he doesn't have anywhere to go. So if the Avengers do fall apart in the events of Age of Ultron, Cap's stuck around. And it seems like he's stuck with Tony Stark, who it seems is now controlling these teams of Avengers. The interesting thing I want to know is the Winter Soldier killed Tony Stark's parents.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah. They
In the movies?
Yeah. They set it up that, well,
In the comics?
yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
It's a neat angle to potentially continue the events of Winter Soldier.
Well, I mean, in the comics, and again, spoiler alert, if people haven't read the comics, in the comics, Civil War ended after everything kind of came back together at the end with Captain America getting assassinated. Now, they retconned that pretty fast, but it was a big to-do at the time, and the Winter Soldier took over as Captain America. Now, we know that Chris Evans, his contract is running out as Captain America, and he has openly said he doesn't really want to do it anymore. He wants to focus on directing. So, doing Civil War, putting him in a position to potentially die at the end of Captain America 3 and give the Winter Soldier an opportunity to take over, that is a very plausible scenario for Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I do not think the Winter Soldier will take over. I do think Captain America will die. If I had to
Could
speculate,
be Falcon.
I think it's going to be Agent 13.
Ooh.
That'd be fun.
You've already set up, I mean, you're sort of testing the waters now with Thor becoming a woman. Why not?
I like that idea.
It fits in pretty well. One of the other reasons to do Captain America is there's obviously a rivalry between studios right now with Marvel, especially not liking Fox for having Fantastic Four and X-Men. But there's also the DC rivalry. And Death of Superman is the storyline that if you don't read comics, you know is a Superman storyline. It's a title that will sell. If you kill Captain America first, you beat them to the punch.
That is true. I mean, a lot of this is about everyone trying to beat each other to the punch. DC, has, their whole new slate of movies is very ambitious. It's a lot right away, and they don't even know if they've really got the fans' support and trust yet. But while they're still getting all their characters together for the first time, Marvel is already pitting them against each other.
Right.
And that is an evolution, and that is a different kind of evolution. What Marvel has been doing, as I said before, is a very Silver Age approach, very superhero-y, very fundamental core of the character, embracing them from that perspective. And now they're jumping all the way to like the modern age, where we're starting to get a little conceptual with it and trying to find ways to really play with what we know of as the genre.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see how much contract negotiations enter into storylines that we're planning on doing. Whether or not we're setting up Lady Thor as a possible replacement down the line, whether we're going to have Captain Marvel. I would be on board with both of those things.
I want to see, the one thing I want to see in a Civil War thing, because Civil War bugged me, but whatever, it led some interesting stories. I want to see Clore. Clore was the unofficial name of a clone of Thor that Tony Stark made to take down Captain America's team of Avengers. We could see Thor versus Thor.
I want
and that would be
Beta Ray Bill.
really cool.
As long as you're throwing this out, I want Beta Ray Bill.
Well,
yes!
Honestly speaking of, if we're to assume that at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron, the Avengers are going to be broken up, and Tony Stark is still around.
A big assumption, by the way.
I think it's a safe one.
It's a safe one, but it could go anyway. I just want to make it clear we don't know.
We don't
we
know the
don't
whole
know.
thing. Theoretically, Tony Stark could be around with new Avengers. He could send the Avengers after Captain America in Captain America 3. It would be a different Avengers, but there's been a history in the comics of Dark Avengers sort of mimicking the core of the team. It can be somebody else in an Iron Man suit. It can be like the equivalent of Thor. You could get the clone of Thor.
Yay! I can finally get a Thunderstrike movie. No one wants a Thunderstrike movie.
The other big speculation is these persistent rumors all of a sudden that Sony is working with Marvel Studios, and potentially Spider-Man could get in the mix, which is big news. And
if it's news.
The only interesting thing we learned this week is prior to announcing that Robert Downey Jr. was coming, joining Captain America 3, Marvel announced a new Civil War #1 and showed a picture of Spider-Man in the Iron Spider costume, which is what he was wearing back then, torn between Captain America and Iron Man.
Yeah.
We've also heard that Marvel's been making some interesting editorial decisions as a way of...
As a comic book company.
The comic books are sort of combating. They're canceling Fantastic Four. They're killing Wolverine. Apparently you're not allowed to create new mutant characters because they're sort of angry at Fox for having some of their property, is the rumor.
Right,
Yes.
but that just sounds really, really petty, if that's true. Because, other companies have had their characters before. Sony has Spider-Man. They're not being too much of a jerk about that. Although I'm sure they want him back. Of course, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, imagine what kind of money they would have to pay to
And
get
it doesn't
Spider-Man
really
back.
make sense for them to be mad about the X-Men, because you couldn't introduce the X-Men in the Marvel Universe right now anyway, because you would have had to say, oh, incidentally, there have been superheroes all this time for forever. It doesn't work.
My personal theory, it's a No More Mutants situation where Scarlet Witch made all the mutants disappear, so the X-Men films actually take place in a pocket universe within the Marvel Cinematic.
I
Silas,
would
cut
totally
that.
watch the movie that you're right, Silas.
Oh my God! But this Spider-Man rumor, and this is just a rumor, and a lot of it I think is just wishful thinking, because Sony has made a lot of statements. The producers of the Amazing Spider-Man movies have even gone on record saying, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but that if we did a team up with the Avengers or with the Marvel Universe, it would mean we ran out of ideas. And when they said that, what they said is, they would mean we screwed up. And one of the things that this whole competition between Warner Brothers and Marvel Studios is all about, it's a rivalry. It's a who's the bigger man kind of thing. No one wants to back down. No one wants to say that they're wrong. Sony doesn't want to say that they're wrong. Marvel Studios knows how to do this, and we don't, even though that's kind of true at this point.
Yeah.
They want to prove themselves and stand on their own. And the other thing is that they give Spider-Man to a crossover with Marvel, they're going to make like half the money probably. They're going to have to give up a significant chunk of the profits. If Spider-Man's in the movie, Marvel's not going to give all the profits to Sony.
That's
and
not
vice versa.
necessarily true at all. I mean, who knows how the deals would ultimately work, but you could have Spider-Man appear in Captain America 3, and then as long as Marvel Studios checks off on whatever Spider-Man movies they want to make, just say, oh, it's okay to fit this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Potentially.
It's a very symbiotic
It sounds
relationship.
like it would be
Likely.
incredibly complicated.
Symbiotic.
That's nice. I think it would be incredibly complicated. I would love to see it, but whether or not that they can make this work without anyone dying.
I would love to see Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe. I don't want this Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe. I think this one's inherently flawed.
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah. Well, whatever. God, this is so complicated. We're going to be back every week complaining about this for the next 4 years.
We'll move on very quickly. I would like to just say that we have the Sinister Six movie coming. If the Sinister Six is a team that's been commissioned by a government that's doing superhero registration, that makes Sinister Six work a lot easier.
It's true.
Potentially, yeah. They could go there, right? And again, this would be another good rivalry to get it out the same year as a Suicide Squad.
Anyway,
Similarly, anyway.
2017, we have the Wolverine sequel, a Marvel mystery movie, Lego Batman, Wonder Woman we talked about before, Fantastic Four 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, another Marvel mystery movie, and then Justice League of America Part 1.
Right. 2018, The Flash, Marvel mystery movies 1 and 2, Aquaman, another mystery. Ooh,
It's a mystery X
yes,
film.
that's right. Mystery X film, right. And then another mystery movie.
And then 2019, we've got Shazam, we've got Justice League 2, we've got another Marvel mystery movie, and at this rate, probably 5 more Marvel mystery movies. Who the hell knows?
And then Cyborg and Green Lantern in 2020. The other ones that are still floating in the air, we don't know what happened to Sandman. It was believed to be in development with Joseph Gordon-Levitt directing and potentially starring. It's sort of vanished. It's not on DC's schedule at all.
Well, it was not in the schedule that they announced this week, and what that might mean is that maybe it's not directly linked with all these other superhero movies.
Right.
Sandman has always existed in its own pocket. That might be pushing it in its own different franchise.
That being said, Warner Brothers did announce Harry Potter films and Lego films as part of this.
3
They did
Harry
very
Potter
much
films.
set up a genre.
Granted,
slate.
but those are huge tentpole movies you want to sell to your shareholders. Sandman is the kind of story you could do more inexpensively and try to do it as more of the Conjuring kind of horror movie kind of release, and that might not be the kind of thing you tell your shareholders in the here's why we're the biggest company in the world meeting.
I really hope they're still doing it.
It could be cool. It could be really, really cool. I hope they do it. I hope they do it right.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in for a very extended episode of Most Craved. Check back next week. We'll have more.